She says she loves you more than anything. She tells her friends you're her soulmate, her person, the one she wants to spend forever with. She posts photos of you with captions about finding her other half. She talks about building a future together, raising children, growing old side by side, and then she stops wanting to have sex with you. Not immediately, not all at once, but slowly, gradually, like a fire burning through its fuel until only cold ashes remain. The woman who once couldn't keep her hands off you now treats physical intimacy like a chore to be scheduled between grocery shopping and paying bills. You're confused, you're frustrated, you're probably angry, because everything you've been taught about relationships suggests that love should increase desire, not kill it. That emotional connection should fuel physical passion, not extinguish it. That being loved should make you more attractive, not less. But here's what nobody wants to tell you about the female mind. Love and lust operate in completely different psychological territories. They don't just coexist uncomfortably. They actively war against each other for control of her emotional landscape, and in this war, lust almost always loses. Today I'm going to explain why the woman who loves you most is often the woman who desires you least. Why becoming her emotional sanctuary guarantees becoming her sexual wasteland. And why the path to keeping both her heart and her body requires understanding a psychological split that most men never recognize, let alone master. Inside every woman's mind lies a battlefield where two opposing forces clash for dominance. The part that wants to love and the part that wants to be taken. These forces don't negotiate, they don't compromise, they don't share territory. One conquers while the other retreats, creating an internal civil war that determines whether she sees you as her protector or her predator, her sanctuary or her conquest. This isn't conscious. She doesn't wake up deciding whether to love you or lust for you today. But her brain is constantly making this choice beneath the surface of her awareness, categorizing you into one psychological box or the other based on how you make her feel about herself, about you, and about the dynamic between you. The love mechanism in her brain wants safety, security, emotional connection, verbal intimacy, shared dreams, and gentle affection. It craves being known, being understood, being cherished for her inner world. This part of her psyche wants to build something lasting with you, to merge her life with yours, to create a partnership based on mutual respect and emotional synchronicity. The lust mechanism wants something entirely different. It craves unpredictability, intensity, physical dominance, primal energy, and yes, objectification. This part of her doesn't want to be known. It wants to be wanted. It doesn't want to be understood. It wants to be overwhelmed. It doesn't want partnership. It wants to be conquered by someone powerful enough to take what he desires. These two systems can't operate simultaneously because they require completely opposite psychological states. Love requires her to see you as safe. Lust requires her to see you as dangerous. Love wants equality. Lust wants dominance. Love cherishes her personhood. Lust ignites through her objectification. Listen to how we talk about sex and you'll understand everything about its true nature. We don't make gentle love using tender vocabulary. We use the language of warfare, conquest, and domination. Hit, bang, smash, screw, pound, nail, bone, slam, ram. These aren't words of affection. They're weapons of aggression translated into sexual terminology. They reveal that authentic sexual desire contains an element of controlled violence, of taking rather than receiving, of conquest rather than collaboration. This aggressive undercurrent in sexual language exists because genuine sexual desire is fundamentally predatory. Not in a criminal sense, but in a psychological sense. It requires one person to want to possess, dominate, and control another person's body. It demands the temporary suspension of equal partnership in favour of primal hierarchy. The woman who loves you can't access this aggressive energy because love activates her protective instincts toward you. She can't simultaneously cherish your emotional well-being and want to be sexually conquered by you. She can't hold space for your feelings while craving your dominance. The psychological states are mutually exclusive. When she loves you, aggression feels wrong. Dominance feels inappropriate. Objectification feels disrespectful. The very behaviours that would ignite her lust seem inconsistent with the emotional bond you've built together. So her brain chooses love and abandons lust. leaving you emotionally fulfilled but sexually starved. Male sexual attraction operates primarily through visual channels. You see a woman's body and your brain immediately categorizes her as sexually desirable or not. Her personality, her dreams, her fears, her complexity as a human being, none of that factors into your initial sexual assessment. You want to have sex with her based on what she looks like, not who she is inside. This isn't shallow or immature, it's biological reality. Male sexual desire requires the ability to temporarily reduce a woman to her physical components, her curves, her movements, her visual appeal. You need to objectify her in order to desire her. The moment you stop seeing her as a sexual object and start seeing her only as a complete person, your desire begins to fade. Female sexual attraction works differently, but follows the same principle. She needs to be able to see you as a sexual predator rather than an emotional partner. She needs to experience you as someone who wants her body more than her feelings, who desires her physically more than he understands her intellectually. But here's the trap. As love grows, your ability to objectify her diminishes. You begin to see her interiority, her thoughts, her emotions, her vulnerabilities, her dreams. She becomes precious to you, special, irreplaceable. The more you love her inner world, the harder it becomes to ignore that inner world during sex. You start treating her more gently. You become more concerned with her comfort than your desire. You prioritize her emotional experience over your physical needs. You turn sex into an expression of love rather than an act of conquest. And with each tender gesture, each careful consideration, each emotional accommodation, her lust for you dies a little more. Every woman carries within her psyche two distinct sexual identities that cannot coexist in the same moment. The Madonna, pure, good, relationship-worthy, deserving of respect and gentle treatment. The whore, sexual, primal, available for physical conquest, existing primarily for male pleasure. These aren't conscious roles she chooses. They're psychological states that activate based on how she's being treated and how she perceives herself in relation to you. When she's in Madonna mode, she's your partner, your equal, your emotional companion. When she's in whore mode, she's your sexual object, existing temporarily for your pleasure and dominance. The problem with modern relationships is that we expect one woman to be both identities for one man. We want the Madonna in the streets and the whore in the sheets. But these psychological states require completely different treatment, different energy, different dynamics. The behaviors that activate her Madonna identity actively suppress her whore identity, and vice versa. When you treat her like a precious partner worthy of emotional consideration, you're activating her Madonna programming. She feels loved, respected, cherished, and completely non-sexual. When she's in this state, sexual advances feel inappropriate, aggressive behavior feels wrong, and dominance feels disrespectful to the emotional bond you've established. To access her whore identity, you need to temporarily suspend the love-based dynamic and activate her objectification programming. She needs to feel desired rather than cherished, wanted rather than understood, sexually valuable rather than emotionally precious. These feelings can't coexist with deep emotional love because they require opposing psychological states. For centuries, men solved this problem through a simple system: wives and mistresses. The wife provided emotional partnership, social status, domestic stability, and reproductive legitimacy. The mistress provided sexual passion, physical adventure, and erotic fulfillment. Each woman served a distinct psychological function, and neither was expected to fulfill roles that contradicted their primary purpose. This wasn't ideal for the women involved, but it worked psychologically because it respected the fundamental incompatibility between love and lust. The man could love his wife without needing to sexually objectify her. He could lust for his mistress without the complications of deep emotional attachment. Each relationship stayed within its natural boundaries. Modern society decided this system was morally unacceptable and replaced it with love marriage, the idea that one woman should fulfill all of a man's emotional and sexual needs. We wanted the Madonna to also be the whore, the wife to also be the mistress, the emotional partner to also be the sexual conquest. But we never solved the underlying psychological incompatibility. We just demanded that women somehow overcome it through willpower and commitment. We expected love and lust to coexist peacefully without addressing the fact that they require opposite psychological conditions to flourish. The result is millions of relationships where emotional love kills sexual desire, where becoming a great partner means becoming a terrible lover, where the deeper the emotional bond grows, the more the physical passion dies. Here's how this plays out in real relationships. Women want to be loved, so they choose men capable of loving them. But love transforms how those men treat them, and those changes kill female desire. The woman gets what she thought she wanted, deep emotional love, and discovers that getting it eliminates what she actually needed, powerful sexual desire. It's not that she was lying about wanting love. She genuinely craves emotional connection, security, partnership, and being cherished. But she doesn't understand that these feelings are incompatible with sexual passion. She expects to be able to have both simultaneously, not realizing that her own psychology makes this impossible. The man, meanwhile, becomes confused and frustrated because he's doing everything right, according to modern relationship advice. He's being emotionally available, communicating openly, treating her as an equal partner, prioritizing her feelings, and showing her consistent love and respect. All the behaviors that should make him more attractive are somehow making him less desirable. He interprets her declining sexual interest as rejection, criticism, or loss of love. But it's actually the opposite. It's evidence that his love is working too well. He's successfully activated her emotional attachment system, which has shut down her sexual desire system as a protective mechanism. This isn't just psychological, it's neurochemical. The brain chemicals that create emotional attachment are different from the chemicals that create sexual arousal, and they don't play well together. When her brain is flooded with oxytocin and vasopressin, the bonding chemicals associated with love and attachment, it becomes much harder for her to access the dopamine and norepinephrine that drive sexual desire. Love makes her feel safe, and safety is the enemy of arousal. Sexual desire requires a certain level of uncertainty, risk, and emotional danger. It needs the possibility of loss, rejection, or abandonment to create the intensity that drives physical passion. When she feels completely secure in your love, that security eliminates the psychological tension necessary for desire. This is why she was more sexually aggressive when your relationship was new and uncertain. When she didn't know how you felt about her, when she wasn't sure where things were going, when she felt like she had to compete for your attention, that uncertainty created the psychological conditions necessary for intense sexual desire. As your love became more obvious, more consistent, more predictable, it eliminated the very uncertainty that had been fueling her passion. The more secure she felt in your feelings, the less sexually motivated she became. Your emotional success became your sexual failure. The solution isn't to love her less or treat her worse. It's to develop the psychological flexibility to switch between treating her as your beloved partner and treating her as your sexual object, depending on the context and desired outcome. When you want to connect emotionally, activate her Madonna programming. Be gentle, considerate, emotionally available, and focused on her inner world. Treat her as your equal partner, your intellectual companion, your emotional sanctuary. This builds the love and security that women crave for long-term bonding. When you want to generate sexual desire, you need to temporarily suspend that loving dynamic and activate her whore programming. Stop seeing her as your precious partner and start seeing her as a woman you want to sexually possess. Stop being considerate of her feelings and start being focused on your desire. Stop treating her as your equal and start treating her as your sexual object. This switching isn't cruel or manipulative, it's psychologically necessary. She needs both dynamics to feel fulfilled, but she can't access both simultaneously. The man who can consciously move between these two modes gives her both the love she craves and the desire she needs. During sexual encounters, you need to be able to ignore her personhood temporarily. You need to be able to physically position her, move her, dominate her, without being concerned about her emotional experience in those moments. You need to use her body for your pleasure while she uses yours for hers. The mutual objectification creates the intensity that pure love cannot generate. This doesn't mean being abusive or disrespectful. It means being sexually selfish in a context where sexual selfishness is appropriate and desired. It means accessing your predatory instincts in a controlled environment where they serve both of your needs. Sexual relationships require an outlet for male aggression that modern society tries to eliminate from all other areas of life. We've created a world where men are expected to be gentle, considerate, emotionally available, and non-aggressive in every context. But human psychology still requires aggressive outlets, and if sex doesn't provide them, that aggression will express itself in other, more problematic ways. When you can't be aggressive with her sexually, that aggression doesn't disappear, it transforms into other negative behaviours. It becomes irritability, criticism, emotional distance, or passive-aggressive control. You start fighting about trivial things because you have no appropriate outlet for the natural aggression that builds up in any intimate relationship. The woman who won't let you be sexually aggressive with her will force you to be emotionally aggressive with her. She'll get the aggression one way or another, but emotional aggression damages relationships while sexual aggression strengthens them. This is why couples who fight frequently often have better sex lives than couples who never fight. The fighting provides an aggression outlet that makes sexual connection possible. The tension and conflict create the psychological conditions necessary for passionate resolution. The healthier solution is to contain the aggression within sexual contexts, where it serves a positive function rather than letting it spill into emotional contexts where it causes damage. Give her your aggression in bed so you can give her your gentleness everywhere else. Understanding this dynamic changes everything about how you approach relationships. You stop trying to be the perfect boyfriend who never objectifies his woman. You stop feeling guilty about your desire to dominate her sexually. You stop apologizing for wanting to use her body for your pleasure. Instead, you recognize that your ability to switch between loving her and lusting for her is what makes you valuable as a long-term partner. Your willingness to sometimes ignore her feelings in favor of your desires is what keeps her attracted to you. Your capacity for controlled sexual aggression is what prevents uncontrolled emotional aggression. She doesn't want a man who only sees her as a person. She wants a man who can see her as both a person and an object, depending on what the situation requires. She wants someone who can be her emotional partner and her sexual predator, her gentle companion and her dominant lover, her equal in life and her superior in bed. The man who cannot make this switch will lose her sexually even if he keeps her emotionally. The man who makes this switch unconsciously will confuse himself and her. But the man who makes this switch consciously and deliberately gives her everything she needs, love when she needs security, and lust when she needs passion. This isn't about being manipulative or calculating. It's about understanding that different aspects of relationships require different psychological approaches. Just as you wouldn't treat a business meeting like a family dinner, you can't treat every intimate moment like an emotional bonding experience. Sexual encounters need their own rules, their own energy, their own psychological framework. In those moments, her comfort is less important than her arousal. Her emotional experience is less relevant than her physical experience. Her personhood is temporarily less significant than her sexual function. This temporary suspension of emotional consideration isn't cruel. It's necessary. She can't access her full sexual potential while you're worried about her feelings. She can't lose herself in physical pleasure while you're focused on her emotional experience. The very consideration that makes you a good partner makes you a mediocre lover. Learning to toggle between these modes consciously, rather than unconsciously, is what separates men who maintain long-term sexual relationships from men who watch passion die in their partnerships. It's the difference between being stuck in one psychological mode and having access to the full range of masculine expression. The most crucial skill in managing this psychological transition is recognizing when to activate which mode. This isn't random or arbitrary. There are specific triggers and contexts that determine whether she needs your love or your lust in any given moment. When she's stressed about work, dealing with family drama, or facing emotional challenges, her brain automatically seeks safety and security. This is Madonna time. She needs your understanding, your emotional support, your partnership in solving problems. Any attempt to sexualize these moments will feel tone-deaf and selfish. But when she's relaxed, confident, feeling attractive, or showing signs of physical playfulness, her brain becomes more receptive to sexual energy. This is when you can begin the transition from partner to predator, from emotional companion to sexual aggressor. The switch doesn't happen instantly. It requires a gradual escalation that allows her psychology to shift gears. You begin by subtly changing your energy. Less talking, more physical presence. Less emotional availability, more sexual tension. Less partnership, more dominance. Watch her responses carefully. If she leans into the sexual energy, continue escalating. If she retreats into emotional mode, you've misread the timing and need to return to partner mode until the conditions change. Most men exhaust their sexual energy in emotional conversations and wonder why they have no intensity left for physical encounters. They spend their dominance on arguing about household tasks instead of reserving it for bedroom dynamics. They waste their aggression on trivial conflicts instead of channeling it into sexual passion. Your energy is finite, and how you allocate it determines what kind of relationship experience she receives. If you give her your dominance during fights about dishes, you'll have nothing left when she needs to feel sexually overpowered. If you spend your intensity on emotional discussions, you'll be depleted when physical intensity is required. The woman who experiences your full masculine energy in sexual context will rarely need to extract it through emotional conflicts. She's getting your strength, your dominance, your intensity, where it serves both of you best. The woman who only receives your energy through arguments and conflicts will unconsciously create more arguments to access the intensity she craves. This energy management requires conscious allocation. Save your dominance for dominance-appropriate situations. Reserve your aggression for contexts where it creates rather than destroys. Channel your intensity into physical rather than emotional confrontations. The greatest irony in modern relationships is that the safety women claim to want actually kills their desire. Not physical safety, that's genuinely necessary, but emotional safety, psychological predictability, the guarantee that you'll never surprise them with unexpected intensity or dominance. She says she wants to feel completely secure in your relationship, but complete security eliminates the psychological tension necessary for sexual arousal. She claims she wants total emotional transparency, but mystery and unpredictability are essential ingredients in desire. She insists she wants partnership and equality, but dominance and submission create the power dynamics that fuel passion. The solution isn't to make her feel unsafe in the relationship, it's to create controlled uncertainty in sexual contexts, while maintaining security in emotional ones. She needs to feel safe in your love, but uncertain about your sexual intentions. Secure in your commitment, but surprised by your physical intensity. This requires mastering the art of selective unpredictability. Be completely reliable in your emotional support and utterly unpredictable in your sexual approach. Be consistent in your partnership and inconsistent in your dominance patterns. Give her security where she needs it and excitement where she craves it. One of the most common mistakes men make is trying to maintain high sexual intensity constantly. They attempt to stay in predator mode all the time, exhausting both themselves and their partner. Sexual energy is like a muscle. It needs recovery periods to maintain peak performance. The rhythm between love and lust modes should follow natural cycles, periods of intense sexual connection, followed by periods of emotional intimacy and partnership. Times when you're focused entirely on taking what you want sexually, balanced by times when you're giving her the emotional connection she needs. This cycling prevents both sexual burnout and emotional neglect. It allows her psychology to reset between intense experiences and creates anticipation for the next sexual encounter. The woman who knows she'll get both your tenderness and your aggression, but not simultaneously, learns to crave whichever one she's not currently receiving. Reading these cycles requires attention to her natural rhythms. Some women need more recovery time between intense sexual experiences. Others crave higher frequency but shorter duration encounters. Some respond better to scheduled transitions while others prefer spontaneous switches. The key is calibrating your approach to her specific psychology while maintaining your own boundaries about what you need from the sexual dynamic. This isn't about accommodating her every preference, but about finding the sustainable rhythm that keeps both love and lust alive in your relationship. The brutal truth is that women can't love you and desire you at the same time using the same psychological mechanisms. Love activates her attachment system, which suppresses her arousal system. The feelings are mutually exclusive in the moment, even though both are necessary for long-term relationship satisfaction. Your job isn't to choose between being loved and being desired. Your job is to create conditions where she can access both feelings at different times for different purposes, to be worthy of her love when she needs security, and worthy of her lust when she needs passion. This requires letting go of the fantasy that emotional intimacy automatically creates sexual intimacy. It requires accepting that the behaviors that make her love you don't make her want you. It requires developing comfort with temporarily objectifying the woman you permanently cherish. Most men never learn this skill because it requires conscious psychological flexibility that feels unnatural at first. It's easier to stay in one mode, either the loving partner or the sexual aggressor, than to learn to switch between them appropriately. But mastering this transition is what creates relationships where both love and lust can thrive over time. The woman in your life doesn't need you to choose between loving her and lusting for her. She needs you to be capable of both, skilled at both, and wise enough to know when each is appropriate. She needs a man who can honour her complexity by matching it with his own psychological range. That's why love and lust can't coexist in the same moment, but must coexist in the same relationship. Understanding this paradox is the key to keeping both her heart and her body engaged for the long term. Master the switch, and you master the game.